Hey everybody, this is Diana Zenny with Think Crunchy. I'm really excited to have our special guest today, Dr. Marc Surprenant with Family Healing Chiropractic. His family and his business are like very central to our Charlotte community here. They have been long-standing business owners and have served so many people. So I'm really thrilled to have him today. He has a ton of wisdom and education that he's going to share with us. And I can't wait to hear more about his story, his family, and how you're doing it all. So welcome, Dr. Marc.
I brought the gray beard in so I can show that wisdom that I have as well today.
I
So,
love it.
so I love this. I love this community that you've created, Diana. It's been great, and I know that we're meeting at my office next week, right?
Yeah.
So which is going to be great as well. So I just love the community you created. Part of the reason why I love the community is that we need to know where our like-minded people are, because it's not a matter of if COVID type shutdowns and lockdowns happen again. It's like when. And so knowing that we have like-minded people that we're together with and that we're on a strong front is just refreshing to know that you don't feel like you're on an island. And so that's one of the biggest things I love about this group and this community that you've created. So I thank you and appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah.
My diagnosis teacher, and I love this. Diana and I went back and forth about what I should talk about, and she's like, what do you think moms and what do you think parents and moms and kids, what do they need to hear? And I said, well, why don't I just share with how we raised 4 girls without drugs and without chemicals? And she's like, that would be perfect. And so I'll give you a little bit of my background so you guys understand it. And I'm going to share with you guys our girl's story too. I'll show you the picture on the next on a couple slides down. My diagnosis teacher at chiropractic school said something to me that impacted me, and this is going to set the tone for what I'm going to talk about today. He said to me, when you could have the choice of 4 different diagnosis teachers, if you got the first one, you would pass boards, no problems. You wouldn't have to study. The other 2 were pretty good. You were going to be pretty good with boards. The fourth guy, they said, he's a wild card. If you take him, you're probably going to have to study all on your own for all the boards questions for diagnosis that you possibly will need. And of course, I got the fourth guy. I got Dr. Shull. And what I loved about Dr. Shull, though, is that he said, listen, he goes, I'm not going to sit here like all these other diagnosis teachers and tell you what medically you're trying to diagnose. Because if you understand, as chiropractors, you also have to learn the medical diagnosis of stuff, which is completely irrelevant to my practice right now. It's nice to have the knowledge and know-how and everything like that. But I'm not trying to diagnose heart disease or high blood pressure or anything else like that. I'm just trying to get people healthy. And he said to us, this is the best thing. He said to us, he goes, listen, I'm going to teach you how to think for yourself. So, and I tell this when I speak out in the community all the time, when I'm on my radio show, I'm going to teach you guys today how to think for yourself, like my diagnosis teacher did for me 25 years ago. He said to me, he goes, listen, he goes, if somebody's blood pressure goes up, I don't want you just to regurgitate some facts. He goes, think about, why would the blood pressure go high? Like, think about the process of what's really happening here. And so what I've really been leading off with for a lot of people these days is like, listen, I want to teach you today how to, number one, be able to think for yourself, but number 2, how to take action. Because it's one thing to have the knowledge. It's another thing to actually apply the knowledge to what you have along the way. Oh gosh, it's not changing my slides now. Can you see the next slide?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, so we're actually located Pineville Matthews Carmel intersection. So there's a little map of where we've been. We've been there for 20 years now, and 2 weeks ago. So we have a 20-year anniversary 2 weeks ago. Pretty amazing. In the same space, same spot. Love the space that we're in. I told you I was going to talk about my girls. I've got 4 daughters. So this is 3 years old, 4 years old, because the one on the right there, Elle, she graduated from Liberty University last week on Thursday and Friday. And so super proud of these guys. Amazing. I'll tell you a little bit of story about how we raised them, though. When they're little, and if you guys have little kids, you guys know that everywhere you take your kids, somebody's constantly trying to give them something like cookies or candy or ice cream or garbage or whatever else is. So we, early on, when we had just the bookends here, when we had Elle and Asa, the 2 girls on the outside here, when they were little, when they were 5 and 3.5, we told them, we said, listen, people are going to offer you stuff. And when they offer you a cookie or candy or something like that, we say, say thank you, no thank you. And when we get home, we're going to help you find a food that's a God food, something that's made naturally, something that's actually supposed to be in your body. And we'll reward you with that. And so we're driving home from Bible study one day, and of course in a minivan, because when you have lots of kids, you have minivans, right? And Elle's sitting in the back of the middle, and she goes, Dad, they had chocolate chip cookies in my class. And I said, thank you, no thank you. And I said, baby girl, I'm so proud of you. That's amazing. For you to know to make the choice and decision to actually make it, that's amazing. We get home, we're going to get a good, healthy snack for you. And Asa, the girl on the left, who's now 19, at 3.5, she goes, Dad, they had chocolate chip cookies in my class, and I ate them all, and they were so good. And a lot of us can relate to that story because we know the rights and wrongs, but making the choices and decisions along the way, we have to create leverage on ourselves. And that's the first part of this. I want to help you guys start to understand leverage over yourself, because sometimes we get stuck in this rut where we're like, okay, I'm going to be okay. We can just let it slide. We can go to Chick-fil-A today and tomorrow and the next day, or we can just not exercise, or we can let the kids have devices and stuff like that. So you need to start to create leverage to realize that what Think Crunchy and Crunchy Moms is all about is like doing something that's different than the rest of the world because you want a different outcome. And so you have to start to learn what that leverage is, or start to create this thing. So these 4 girls were all 4 born at home, with midwives, water births, no vaccines, no vitamin K, no crap for your eyes, never had a cough syrup in their body, never even been to a doctor. I remember when one of the girls was doing their homework, when they were really little, they couldn't get the answer. They had a picture of a nurse, and they were supposed to say nurse, and my girls didn't know what a nurse was because they've never been to a doctor, you know? So it's just kind of funny that the world that we created for them. We also taught them when they were really little, we'd go drive by McDonald's, and we'd roll the windows down so they could smell it. We'd be like, make throw up noise. We'd be like, bleh. And so they did that. None of my girls had McDonald's. None of them had McDonald's until the oldest actually had a French fry when she was a senior. And she had like all her friends on social media videotaping her eating her first French fry as a senior in high school. So I tell you guys all that stuff. We were not perfect with our kids, but and I tell you guys that to say, hey, look, you try your best along the way is what you can do. Our mission at our office is getting people healthy, free of meds, keeping families healthy through holistic living, the way that God designed the body through chiropractic and living God's way. It's a simple message that we've said in chiropractic for over 100 years, that God needs no help, just no interference. Nature, God, I don't care what you call it, doesn't matter to me, but just understand that the way that this body is designed doesn't need help. It just needs us to not screw it up along the way. One of my mentors and the founder of chiropractic said this statement. I keep coming back to the statement. In fact, I probably say this statement about 5 to 10 times a day with hundreds of patients. The reason why, I desired to know why one person was ailing and his associate eating at the same table, working at the same shop, same bench, was not. Why? What's the difference between these 2 people? What caused one to have various diseases while the other one escaped it? Like, you ever think about that? Like, why is it that 2 people, because we try to blame our environment and a lot of stuff, or we try to blame genetics and the same stuff. But even people that are in the same family, they end up having different problems along the way. And what's fascinating is that you start to ask the question, well, why does it happen? I had a lady that came in recently. She had headaches from staring at a computer screen all day long, is what she said. And I said to her, I go, Jill, do you have people that work on computers next to you? She's like, yeah, there's hundreds. I'm like, do they all have headaches? She's like, no. I go, so it's not the computer screen that's causing the headaches, is it? It goes, there's something wrong with you looking at the computer screen that's causing headaches. Same thing. Another lady came in. She's like, I got sciatic nerve. She goes, it's because I'm 50 pounds overweight. I go, I get it. And that might be part of the problem. But there are people that are 100 pounds overweight that don't have sciatic nerve problem, that don't have pain and numbness in their legs. Why is it happening to you? So the question we keep asking is why? What's the deeper understanding? And I'm going to get to that before we finish this presentation. I like to go here. Always go to the germ theory versus terrain theory. And this is a big piece of it all. And the reason why is that you've got to understand is that back in the mid 1800s, Louis Pasteur came up with this thing called the germ theory. You guys are probably familiar with it. It was accepted by, and it's accepted by now our big medical industrial complex, big pharma, the whole society. You catch things from other people. You catch COVID from other people. Wear your mask to protect me. Stay home to protect me. Social distance to protect me. You know, even the man who invented this germ theory on his deathbed, he goes, I was wrong. Like he said on his deathbed, he said, the pathogen is nothing. It's all about the terrain. And at the same time, his counterpart, Claude Bernard, said, focusing on personal responsibility. It's about how is the host? Is the host receiving, or is the host has the host immune system, or has the host become such a place that it can receive sickness and disease? Or are you strong? Is my health good that it doesn't matter that you can expose me? Like during COVID, I went and adjusted people at their house. I didn't wear gloves. I didn't wear masks. I kept adjusting. People came to the office. Why? Not because I'm irresponsible, but now I know that my immune system's strong because I've really worked hard on it for the last 30 years. And when the immune system's strong, your body, and to be frank, I wanted my body to be challenged. I wanted to be exposed to these viruses or whatever they were saying is coming out there along the way. My best way to talk about the germ theory is I talk about my grandpa's farm. He passed on about 3 years ago, but he was 95 years old, lived a great life. Grandpa and grandma both lived to be like mid 90s. But at one point in time, they have these farms up in Illinois, and their farmland was divided by a road that went straight down the middle. On one side, they had crops on both sides. But what was going to happen is the city of Chicago was trying to buy one side of the land. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to come in and they wanted to start to dump garbage on that side of the land is what they were going to do. And so here's the picture of what you're going to see is that one side of the road was going to have a green pasture. One side was going to have a garbage dump. And it was going to be split by a road. And basically the city of Chicago was ready to give him a pretty good sum of money for this land. And you start to think about, like, once you start to create and throw all this garbage on there, what does it start to attract? It starts to attract the maggots, the rodents, the flies, the buzzards, all these things that come in that are opportunistic, come in and start to live off the land. Now, when these buzzards, when these flies, when these maggots, if they cross the road over to the green pasture, what's going to happen is they're going to go over there and going to say, what? There's nothing for me over here. Like I can't survive over here. I need to go back over here where I'm more opportunistic and I can handle this stuff. Now think about this medically. Medically, how and this is fascinating. When I say this, you're going to be like, well, it's just stupid. But if you realize this, this is really our medical model right here, is that they're going to come in and say, well, man, no, the maggots are a problem. The rodents are a problem. The buzzards are a problem. So they're going to go shoot the buzzards out of the sky. They're going to poison the rodents, poison the maggots, and they're going to just medicate the heck out of the land. And they're going to get rid of temporarily some of those buzzards, some of those parasites, basically, right? They're going to come and they're going to get rid of them for a little bit. But once the medicine wears off, once the chemicals wear off, what happens? Comes right back. The only way that you're going to make this land that was once a green pasture, that was once a fertile soil, a great farmland that produced tons of crops for like 100 years. The only way you're going to get it back is by what? You've got to take the garbage out of here. You've got to remove the garbage. You've got to make sure that the terrain is good. And so when we start to talk about these things, that's the difference here. I want to talk about, do you have green grass or do you have brown grass? Do you have green pastures or do you have garbage in it? Like, what are you, and again, back to personal responsibility on this, right? I'm responsible for this thing. And this is where, and I'll get more into this a little bit, probably. Don't let anybody ever tell you it's a genetic problem. Okay. If you let somebody say you have a genetic problem, oh, you're there, and don't get me wrong, there are true genetic issues, like Down syndrome is a genetic issue. There are other issues that are true genetic issues. But the majority of metabolic diseases that we're suffering from, that kids have, that adults have, these are not genetic issues. And I don't care what your genetics are, you still, no matter if you have bad genetics, you still want to make sure you have a green grass. No matter if you have bad genetics, right? You want to make sure you do even more so, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You want to be even more so. And so what ends up happening is that you want to, no matter what, clean the terrain and make sure that the body is as fertile as possible to be able to receive the health that it needs. But if you're living in this, if you believe in the genetic model, what happens is if somebody says I have a genetic heart disease or genetic cancer, it's going to make me not give two craps and I'm going to go eat Taco Bell today. Like, why even try? Why even try if I say I have if I believe in this genetic issues? There are bigger things you have to start to dive deeper in. Did you want to add anything?
No, I think I love this analogy and I love this visual. I think it's really powerful. And I think I was sitting here nodding my head thinking exactly what you just said, which is like, it is so disempowering to look at it as, oh, this thing is in my genes. It's going to happen to me. When we know now that, like you're saying, so much of it is not in your genes, right? There are some things, of course, but we control so much of our health and so much of our destiny by the choices that we're making every day. And I think people also conversely see that they need to make changes and find the whole darn thing so overwhelming, not knowing, not realizing that if they start making little changes, those compound. And, once you start feeling a little better, making those other changes gets easier, right? Like if I start eating a little better and take out the Chick-fil-A and McDonald's, like, hey, like maybe my skin clears up, maybe I lose weight, maybe I'm putting other nutrients in my body so I have more energy and strength and I can chase my kids around and I'm living a better life. And then hey, yeah, it's easier to also have more connection and work on my faith and work on my community and do those other things. So it's just those little steps, trying to keep people from having that overwhelm.
And I love what you said there. Is like, this is kind of what I've been harping on for the last month. Is like, listen, why wait until you get diabetes before you start eating better? Why wait until you get the cancer to start to do things differently and start to take the right supplements? Like, no, why not? And that's how we've been programmed. That's how we've been taught. That's how we've been brainwashed. And what that does is it robs who God designed us to be. And for us, I love what you said there, Diana, is that it robs us of being all that God created us to be, to go out in this world and to be able to help as many people as we possibly can. How can you be a light if you're sick and suffering and dying? And the problem is we've been taught, okay, I start eating good for a couple weeks, I feel a little bit better, symptoms start go away. But then what we do next is we say, okay, I'm good. I can go back to doing the old stuff again. I get that in chiropractic office all the time. People, have major issues. We start working on it. They get better. They feel better. I'm like, now this is where chiropractic starts. Is once you feel better, this is where chiropractic should have been. That's why we take care of kids and want to make sure that they don't develop problems, because it's about taking care of yourself ahead of time. So good. I always like to start and I know I'm deeper into this than just the start, but I love this, the State of the Union, where we're at right now. This is about creating leverage. Two Harvard doctors, is about 10 years ago, a study, they said, maybe a little bit more. They said, listen, I'm tired of Americans complaining about our healthcare system. We're going to prove it to you guys once and for all that we have the best healthcare system in the world. Harvard medical doctors, smart guys. And they said, we're going to take only the 37 richest countries in the world, and we're going to start to compare data, who's healthy and who's sick. And we're going to prove to you guys that America is really, really good. Bad research from the beginning, because you're already putting that out there, right? So here's what they did. They took the top 37 richest countries, because they didn't want to compare us like a third world country like Haiti or something like that. So of the 37 richest countries, as they started gathering data, two things came off and just yelled at them off the charts. First one was, guess who takes the most drugs out of all those countries, the 37 countries? Who takes the most drugs, medications out of all those countries?
We do.
Is there any doubt in your mind, right? We are 5% of the world's population, yet we take 75 to 80% of the world's medications. So we take the most meds. So if meds were the answer, we should be the healthiest country on the planet. Second one was that they found, guess who spends the most money per person on healthcare every single year? Us by far. We spend about $15,000 a year. The second place country spends about 7 to 8. So if drugs and money were the answer, we should have been the healthiest country on the planet. They found that we were 37 out of 37, dead last. We were number one in obesity, number one in cancer deaths, number one in heart disease deaths, number one in diabetes, number one in infant mortality, meaning babies that died before the age of 2 years old that should not have died. And their conclusion was, our problem is we do not have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system, meaning that we wait until you break down, wait until the symptom gets bad enough. And then usually when we get there, we do nothing about it, or we medicate it to cover it up, and we never actually fix the real problem. So, and I tell you guys this, probably preaching to the choir here, but I want you guys to remember this stuff. I have to remind myself this stuff of why do we do what we do? And this is a big reason why. And here's what's crazy. I just saw this stat. It's a new study from 2022. They found that 93% of Americans are what they call metabolically unfit. Metabolically unfit, which means that they have some kind of disease in process of already starting or already there. 93% of Americans. Now think about this. If there was a species of any animal, let's take water buffalo. If 93% of the water buffalo were metabolically unfit, what would we automatically think is going to happen to the water buffalo?
Extinction.
They're going to go to extinction. And this is where we're at as Americans right now. We wonder why we have so much depression and anxiety, so much mental health issues, so much issues with focus and all these things. And this is why we're metabolically unfit, because we've been programmed, we've been brainwashed to think that you don't do anything until you get a symptom. Then when you get a symptom, you go take the drug, obviously, for these things. Here's the top 6 chronic diseases in kids affecting kids these days: asthma, diabetes, obesity, ADD, ADHD, autism, depression, suicide, second highest cause of death in adolescents, according to the CDC right now, and malnutrition. Malnutrition, you think about how can malnutrition be one of the top 6 chronic diseases affecting Americans today? Well, I mean, you guys know how. You guys see what these kids eat, and it comes from the parents. It's not the kids' fault. And again, we can't blame the kids. We blame the parents, right? But we blame it because of marketing. We blame it because of, okay, we're going to be fine. People don't have enough leverage. Oh, but my kid will only eat chicken nuggets, right? Like I hear that on a consistent basis. My kid will only eat, Kraft macaroni and cheese or whatever else it is. It's like, I get these things, but like, man, these metabolic disorders in kids, if this is where it's starting, then this is where it's going. And what's happening is, and what we're seeing more and more of, is these metabolic disorders are at higher rates than we've ever let them. And this is happening. It's not a genetic issue. These things that you see on here are not genetic issues. They are not. I don't care what you've been told. I don't care what you've been sold. It doesn't matter. These are not metabolic conditions. Okay. And I will tell you that you come to my office, I will tell you these are not genetic issues. These are metabolic disorders. These are lifestyle. These are function issues. These are things that you can influence and change. Had an 87-year-old lady in today, and she's had shots in her legs. She's had all this stuff. She can't feel her legs right now. And she's like, doctor said I have central canal stenosis. There's nothing I can do about it because it's genetic and my mom had it, blah, 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 blah. I'm just like, okay, it's all BS. Like, you've made it this far without having these issues. Now it's developed because the last 50 years, you didn't know how to take care of your spine. You can make choices and decisions today to move it and to influence moving forward, which is what we're going to do with her. But here's the healthcare today. And this is what happened to me. And so some of you guys know my story. Some of you guys don't. But I got stuck in this medical merry-go-round. And some of you guys are in this with you or your kids right now. That I had asthma and allergies when I was really, really young. In fact, 7 years old, they got so bad, my mom had to rush me to the hospital. They had to inject me with something. They sent me home with one of those inhalers, and I was thankful for it, because at 7 years old, you're confused about why you're having all these symptoms and you can't breathe. So I start using this inhaler. And as I'm using the inhaler, it helps my breathing. But the problem is, all medicines come with what? They all have side effects. Every single one of them. There's not a magic pill out there. The side effects of the inhaler was it started causing headaches. So at 12 years old, living in a small town in Iowa, my mom takes me back to the same doctor. And she's like, hey, my son can barely put his football helmet on because his head hurts so bad. And the doctor's like, oh, just give him this Tylenol aspirin. He'll be fine. So I start taking Tylenol aspirin so I can put my football helmet on. Well, guess what it does to my stomach? It starts eating a hole in my stomach. I started having acid reflux at 17 years old. So my mom, being a good mom, takes me back to these doctors and the healthcare today, right? And the reason why we're stuck in this is the medical industrial complex is yes, doctors, but the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance industry wants you to stay in this medical merry-go-round. They want you to stay in this. I can't tell you how many people get to come to me that want help, but then they say, but I only want help. My insurance can help me with this. If my insurance pays for this. Well, I don't know if I can swear, but I would want to swear right now. It's a crock of crap, And then it is, because that whole model is trying to keep their thumb on you and keep you there forever. You have to do something different to get out of this model. Thank God. So I started taking acid reflux medication at 17 years old. Then I started developing digestive issues. So I was in my 3rd year of pre-med at University of Iowa. I was going to become a medical doctor. I wanted to help people. And my academic advisor said to me, she goes, hey, you should go see my chiropractor. And I thought she was out of her gourd, because if you're 3rd year pre-med, all you've been taught is chiropractors are quacks. And so I said chiropractors were quacks for 3 years, and I didn't know anything about chiropractic. And so some of you guys have probably said chiropractors are quacks or heard it. I've said it more than anybody. But I went because here's what the academic advisor said to me. She goes, listen, 99% of chiropractors work with aches and pains, and they're pretty good with it. But 1% work with the healing power that God put inside your body, and they support that to allow to remove interference so your body can actually heal from the inside out the way it was designed, whether it's through nerve system, eating better, exercising, you name it, all these pieces allow your body to be able to heal better. She said this to me, and she goes, you should go see my chiropractor. And again, I didn't have neck pain or back pain, but I went. And he took x-rays of me, and I'll show you some pictures of some x-rays in a little bit so you can understand the function of the body. And sure enough, my neck that's supposed to have a curve in there like this, like a banana, I had no curve in my neck whatsoever. And that was creating massive tension on my brainstem and spinal cord. So here my brain's trying to tell my body how to work, but it can't communicate properly because there's stress to the nerve system. It's disrupted. Think about it like a garden hose. If you kink it slightly, the water flow is not perfect. And if the water flow needs to be perfect for your garden to survive, and now you have imperfect water flow, now you start to create diseases and other problems to happen with the garden. Same thing happens with the body. Your body, your brain has the perfect amount of information from your brain to your body, but the organ cells and tissues need the right amount of nerve supply. If there's any deviation away from that, and D.D. Palmer, the originator of chiropractic, he said it's about tone. It's about, like, if you take a guitar, I've got two guitars over here, but if I take one, I don't play at all, just so you guys know, that's my daughter's. So don't be impressed. But if I pluck it and it's out of tune, right, it's not going to sound good. But if I turn it the other way and I tune it in and I pluck it, it sounds good. But then if I keep turning it, it goes back. So there's a certain tone. Same thing with the nerve system, a certain tone. And the chiropractor explained this to me, and I started getting adjusted. Within 3 months, I came off of all 4 of my medications. And that was 29 years ago. And I've still, after 29 years, still have not put another drug or chemical in my body. However, full disclosure, I did rupture my Achilles 11 years ago. And when I ruptured my Achilles running on the beach, I did take 2 Vicodin after the surgery because Corona beer was no longer cutting the pain anymore. Okay. There's a time and a place for medical, right? There's emergency situations for these things. But if you want to truly be healthy, my job is to help you understand how to get out of this medical model. How do you get out of there? So I tell everybody who walks in my office, and this I tell this to crowds like you guys. If you're having a problem or symptom, it's already late in the process. The disease process is already set in. The symptoms are really, it's kind of like the oil light in your car. The oil light doesn't come on until it's really late in the process. And then sometimes you park on a hill and the light goes off and you're like, okay, good, it's all fixed. Not really. It's just you found a loophole that your light's going to go off for a little bit longer, but there's still an oil problem, right? So I tell everybody who walks in my office, whether they have cancer, heart disease, diabetes, neck pain, back pain, doesn't matter. 3 options. You can do nothing about these symptoms, but if you do nothing about the symptoms, whatever is causing it, it's going to keep getting worse. Now, the symptoms might come and go. It's very, very likelihood that there's a very likable chance that you could go through the symptoms up and down. And so when the symptoms are gone, you're like, oh no, I'm fixed. Not necessarily. If you do nothing about it, whatever's causing it gets worse. Number 2, you can medicate it, massage it, you could ice it, you could heat it, you can put electricity on it. And even though you might hide the symptoms, whatever is causing it still keeps getting worse. So the third option, and this is what I tell all my patients, I'm like, listen, you've got to find out what is at the core of this problem. What's causing this issue? And remove the cause and let the body actually go through its ability to be able to heal itself. And in our office, it's not about getting rid of somebody's pain. That's not what I do it for. I do it because I want to get the level of function to the highest level, and I want to make sure that your body is able to adapt. It's all about adaptability. The people that can adapt are the ones that stay healthier. So it's like, think about it this way. If I have a plant, there's a plant here. I'm not going to show it to you because it's not healthy. So I'm not going to show it to you. But if I took this plant and turned it away from the light, what's it going to want to do? It wants to turn its leaves back to the light. Why? Because it wants to survive. If I don't water it, what does the root system do? It digs deeper because it's trying to find water. So we have this innate intelligence inside of our body, this inborn intelligence that wants to survive, wants to take care of us, but its favorite communication pathway is through the nerve system. And if the nerve system's not freely flowing, if it doesn't have good tone, then all of a sudden your body starts to open doors for sickness and disease to start to walk in. Pretty crazy.
Pretty amazing.
Most Americans here's our approach. We react to illness. We want a quick fix. We allow our insurance to dictate how healthy we can be. Final destination is just avoiding pain. And so if you want to be different, you have to be different. If you want different outcomes, you have to be different. And so remember, and this is kind of a clunky transition here, but I want you guys to understand this. I talked a lot about this during COVID. So sickness and disease models, right? Especially when it comes down to things like, and I'm going to come back to function. I'm going to come back to how do we get to the core cause of function of the body. But I think it's important for this network here too. And Diana, I don't know if you know, but in July 27th, I think PAVE's doing an event at my office where they're bringing some speakers in. Did you hear about this?
I do know.
You're the reason? You're probably the reason why they're doing it. Okay, so. And so, but I'm going to talk a lot about this right here because people, like during COVID, they're like, how come you're not reacting? How come you're not being crazy? I'm like, because all disease models go through this bell curve, all of them. All of them have to go through this. Like, you have to be exposed to flu. You have to be exposed to stuff. You have to go through this bell curve for your body to actually build up immunity. Now, here's what's cool about it. Because our bodies are so smart and we have this inborn intelligence, you also pass on that knowledge to the next generations too. And that's what's pretty amazing about it. So when COVID's going through this thing, they're like, we need to flatten the curve, flatten the curve. I'm like, you ain't going to flatten crap. You can try to flatten crap, but when you try to flatten it, what you're going to do is you're just going to extend it out further and you're going to create other problems, which they did. And we know it. And they keep creating more problems, right? But so some of you guys that are on the fence and say, like, yeah, but you know what? I get what you're saying. I get taking care of myself, but I'm so bought into this medical system because, man, vaccines have changed. And again, I don't care where you're at on the vaccines standpoint, but I'm pretty vocal about this. I've done talks all over the country for the last 15 years on this stuff. Big advocate, give a lot of money to these groups that help people become educated more. I love PAVE because it's people advocating vaccine education. That's what it is, right? I
Yeah.
love it
Yeah.
because the more you get educated about this stuff, the better off you are. So people say, "Oh, yeah, but you know, vaccines have changed the world, right? They've made it better." But here's what's pretty crazy. Here's measles. So the impact of vaccines and mortality decline since 1900, you guys see, this is the bottom part of a bell curve. Like, the vaccine wasn't even introduced until really late in this process. Like, so you understand that measles were already on the decline before they ever even introduced anything. And you start to go through even more. Then you go through whooping cough. Same thing. They found out where the actual virus is actually, they found it. And then they said, okay, well, let's introduce this vaccine. And what happens is it was already on the bottom of the decline of these things. And I'm giving you the very simplified version of this right now, but I want you guys just to ask the questions along the way. Reach out to the Crunchy Moms group, reach out to Think Crunchy, ask people questions, ask me. I'll give you my details at the end. Ask Diana. She's super educated on this stuff. You know, I think we met at Vax 2 is where we met, right? At the
I think
viewing
so.
of
Yeah.
Vax 2 years ago. And
Yeah.
you know, you just gotta start to educate yourself about this. You guys have learned something through COVID. Again, I wanted to teach you guys how to think for yourself, right? I think the one thing we all learned during COVID is going into, I heard Del Bigtree, who's a big vaccine education advocate. Del Bigtree's great. He had said, he's the one that actually produced, I believe, Vaxxed, right? Vaxxed and Vax 2. He said, listen, he goes, going into COVID, if we could have had 1% of the population that would say, I'm going to educate myself about vaccines for kids and vaccines for adults, that they would, if we could just get 1% more that would say, hey, look, I'm going to ask questions about this at least. Then COVID hits, and what happens is you've got 50% of the population questioning this stuff because you saw right in front of you that you're being fed garbage. And I think, was it AstraZeneca yesterday or the day before? Did you see this? They pulled the vaccine, the COVID vaccine.
Oh, I did see that.
They
I
pulled it.
saw that.
They pulled it, like, all safe and effective, not going to bother anybody. It's going to prevent. And here they are pulling it not very long later. And after they lied to us. And so I think people are waking up to this stuff. But again, I love these charts because you start to look at these things, you're like, oh, what about scarlet fever? Same thing. The vaccines weren't introduced until really late in the process. Medicines weren't introduced until really late in the process. So again, I like to show this stuff to help you guys understand, listen, the way that our bodies are designed are intelligent. And back to the original quote that I love, I desired to know why one person was ailing, one and was associate eating at the same table, working the same shop, same bench was not. Why is that? Again, ask the question. Is it because of nutrition? Because come on, I have people, we all know people like this. Let's say it's all about eating right and exercising. If you just ate right and exercised, you'd be better. I mean, how many of us know people that eat right and exercise still get cancer or heart disease? We still know people like this. That's a real head scratcher for people, right? It's a head scratcher for people. And so then how about the other side of it though? We know people that smoke and drink that live to be 95 years old. Like, everybody's got that great uncle that won't die. And that's exactly, we know those people. And you're like, so all the things that we're talking about here, you start to scratch your head and say, well, then why is that? Why is it that one gets sick and one doesn't? So I look at this from a function standpoint. And all you can do is put yourself in the best possible position to be able to heal. And that's what you're looking for. So you look at the right of the screen at 100% function, and the left of the screen is 0% function. Now, I want you guys to say this in your head. I'm going to pause a little bit. If your body is functioning at, and I talk to patients about this nonstop, if your body's functioning at 0% function, what's wrong with you?
You're dead.
Dead. It's not very hard. It's not very complex. If you have 0% function, you're dead. If you have 100% function, what's right with your body? Everything.
Everything.
Now, not only do you feel good, not only is your energy good, but you have no aches and pains, no sickness and no disease. You're a better
Yeah.
husband, you're a better wife, you're a better mom, you're a better dad, you're a better kid. Your hormones are more balanced. You get better sleep. You have better energy. Sex life's better. Everything's better when you're at 100%. And so that's what we're trying to do, is understand what influences your body to go towards 100%. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to establish when it comes to people in my office. This is the missing key ingredient that comes with this. Now, my goal is to get people as close to 60 or 100% as you possibly can. What happens is, as you lose function, as you go down, as you go to 90% function, 80% function, 70% function, finally, when you hit 60% function, research shows that's finally when the symptom finally shows up. That's when your headache shows up. That's when your depression shows up. That's when the high blood pressure shows up. That's when the early signs of cancer or heart disease show up. It doesn't show up right away. And the reason why is because out of all the nerves in the body that feel or create or help you alert your body, only 7% of the nerves in there are for feeling. The other 93% are for function. 93% of your whole nerve system is for
Wow.
function alone, meaning that we could cut nerves to your heart, your lungs, your liver, your kidney, your legs, muscles, and you wouldn't even feel a thing if we don't hit a nerve that feels pain. Fascinating, right? It's a protective
Crazy.
measure. It's a protective measure, right? But what happens is, it's like the oil light on the car. The oil light comes on when you lose enough oil. And if you put a piece of black tape over top of the oil light, the dashboard, you don't see the light anymore. But if you keep driving it, it's going to break down or blow up. Right. And that's exactly what happens. I actually did that. Diana, you're going to love the story. I did it in high school. I finally got a date. It was actually college. Finally got a date with Jennifer Pudens. I wanted to date her for all of high school, all of middle school. And my car ended up, the light came on during, like, before this date. So I put like index cards up on the dashboard and covered it up. And sure enough,
Oh,
we broke down driving to the next town trying to go to the movies. Had to call my
oh
stepdad
no.
to come get me. So it didn't work out for my car. It didn't work out for me. And when people do this to their health, it doesn't work out for people in their health in the long run either. And so when you hit 60% function, that's finally when the symptom shows up. Now, what's the key ingredient? How is it? And I had this come through my office doors recently. This girl comes in, 37 years old. If you looked at her from the outside, she's healthy. She's a mom. She wears workout clothes. You'd be like, this girl's healthy. She's beautiful. She's vibrant. She's all these things. You read her chart and you find out she's got 2 forms of cancer, and you're blown away. You're like, this is not the stereotypical cancer person that you would ever think. What happened is, she was a smoker in college, only for 1 year. And her oncologist is like shaking his head. He's just like, I don't understand this. He goes, but here's what I think. When you took that cigarette smoke in her lungs, what were her lungs not able to do with the toxins that came with it? Her lungs weren't able to process it, reject it, heal it, adapt to it. She already had underlying issues with her lungs. But for her to put the toxins in on top of it, that it couldn't deal with these things, couldn't adapt to it, that was a real issue. And it metastasized and spread to her breast. Another girl comes in my office right about the same time. She's 19 years old. Her great grandpa, 95 years old, smoked for 80 years, pack a day, drank every single day. He looked like death. He smelled like death. He was just like, I mean, this guy, it's a typical person that you think of somebody that smoked for 80 years, and that's who you're picturing is who it was. Like, right?
Yeah.
This guy did a scan of his lungs right before he died, and guess what they found? They found 0 cancer cells. Don't get me wrong. It was tarry, it was black, it was beat up, but they couldn't find cancer clusters in his lungs. And the reason why is when he took the toxins in his body, somehow, some way, some shape or form, his function, his body was able to adapt, reject, get rid of what it needed to. You saw the same thing during COVID too, right? During COVID, the people that got COVID that had problems were people that had what? Pre-existing conditions, or what they called comorbidities. Well,
Mhm.
newsflash, you don't have comorbidities or pre-existing conditions because you're unlucky or because it's genetics. You have pre-existing conditions and comorbidities because your body is unhealthy. It's metabolically unfit. That's what's wrong with it. But when they got COVID, they had problems. The ones that got COVID that didn't have problems were the people that were functioning at 100% because their body was metabolically fit and could handle that. And so what it comes down to, again, don't get me wrong, we teach eating right and exercising. But where I come down to, and when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. When you're a chiropractor, everything's nerve system. This is what I do know, and this is what I know to be true, and this is what I work with on a regular basis. I know that your brain controls every part of your body and your kid's body. Your brain controls your thoughts. It controls your emotions, your hormones, your patterns. It controls every organ, cell, tissue in your body. And what happens is you have billions of neurons up here, and it comes together and forms millions and millions of nerves, hundreds of millions of nerves that come down and form your spinal cord. It's wiring. Most people think the brainstem and spinal cord are two separate organs. They're not. It's one continuous organ. It's continuous. It's connected together. What happens, though, is that if I take, and the French did research on this years ago in medieval times, they use this thing called the guillotine, and they cut people's heads off. And what they found with complete conclusiveness is that if they cut the head off, 100% of the time, the person dies. So understand, this is where your life is. You need this. You need to take care of this, but this is protected, and it sends messages down through the spinal cord, and it has to have the connections. So if the nerve system's working at 100%, if the nerves are flowing at 100% with the proper tone to the heart, the lungs, liver, the kidneys, then the body's going to be able to heal, adapt. Does that mean that you can do anything you possibly want? Does that mean you can smoke and drink and do that? No, you still shouldn't do those things. But what you can do is you can know that if your brain and spinal cord nerve system is working at 100% or as close to as possible can, then you know that your body has the adaptability factor that you can mess up some things, but your body will be able to recover. But we want to start to take care of all those things. So if I take all the nerves, if you see on this chart here, if you look at where the heart is, if I took all the nerves that go to your heart and cut it, heart's going to die. If I take all the nerves to your right leg and cut it, your right leg's going to die. Life's being cut off. We don't see cut nerves in a chiropractic office. What we see are stressed, strained, or damaged nerves. So what will happen is the spine will become misaligned. And the reason why, in chiropractic, we call it traumas, thoughts, and toxins. There's physical traumas, there's emotional stress, and there's chemical stress. That's a whole nother class, whole nother day. I'll do that, talk about that some other time. But what happens is if we're overloaded with stress, our bodies can only handle so much, and they have to adapt and protect itself. And that's why the spine actually goes out of alignment. Most people think your spine only goes out of alignment because you got in a car accident or had a fall. That's not true. It's emotional stress, physical stress, and chemical stress, which we're all exposed to. So what happens is the spine goes out of alignment. Now, if I pinch the nerves that go to the heart, that heart's still going to die, but it doesn't die right away. It dies slowly over the course of many years. And as it starts to approach that 60% function, what ends up happening is then finally the first symptom might be you're tired, or you have headaches, or you have high blood pressure or high cholesterol, and you go to the doctor for these things if it's annoying enough, and they give you a pill or drug for the symptoms, but never address what's really causing the issue. So same thing, take the same nerves that go to your leg instead of cutting it. If I pinch the nerves that go to your leg, that leg's going to slowly die. You're going to have cramping, knee problems, ankle problems, and the same nerves that go to the leg is the same nerves that also control your male or female organs, your digestive system, your bladder. So you start to see these other things start piling on top if you don't take care of the damage at the nerve system. So again, back to how does this happen? I look at birth. You know, people say, oh, man, how does this happen to babies? Why should babies get checked? Well, this is one of the reasons. This is why we did 4 home births, because we wanted to make sure the midwife knew and the doulas know. Hey, say, don't touch the neck. Like, let this baby come as natural as possible. Now, don't get me wrong, and I'm not shaming anybody. If you had a C-section for your kid, thank God your kid's here healthy, right? But that kid that had a C-section has a little bit more difficult time having a proper functioning spine because there's something out of alignment there. Because it becomes all pulling. When they do a C-section, they have to deaden the uterus, and you're not going through the birth canal, vaginal canal, so there's no pushing from behind. It becomes all pulling, and there's a lot of tension. And so blocked nerve impulses at Atlas, these are huge for clinical issues. Kids that have things like focus issues, sleep issues, bathroom problems, even if they're babies or even into their toddler years, these are chronic ear infections, chronic immune system issues. This typically is because there's some kind of trauma that happened early on in life, possibly at birth, maybe in utero. And I'm going to show you a couple pictures of some kids here in a second. But what we're looking at when it comes to nerve system, nerve function, you can see the normal on the left there. This is a picture of a low back straight on. Left is left, right is right. But you can see the left and right hip, they're perfectly balanced. The spine's perfectly straight up and down. So the person on the left, their tone of their spinal cord and nerve system is working at 100%. The person on the right there, you can see the scoliosis there. You can see how the hips are out of balance. And what's pretty fascinating about this kid, I call him a kid, he's 30 years old, comes into my, when I look at an x-ray like this, here's what I look at. I'm like, okay, this is the lower half of the spine. So I look at all these organ cells and tissues in here that's connected to it, including the muscles. And I'm like, I know that these things are struggling. They're not working at 100% like they're supposed to. Now, I don't know if he's going to have symptoms of all these things, but here's how he came to my office. At 20 years old, he started having right flank pain. So he goes to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, you got a kidney problem. So they go, here, take this pain med. So he's at that 60% function where he has a symptom. They give him pain med. How does the pain med fix his problem? Doesn't. So at 25 years old, they put him on dialysis 3 days a week
Oh,
for 5 hours a day. Dialysis. How does dialysis fix this problem? Doesn't. It's another cover up. Finally, 30 years old, they want to do a kidney transplant. They want to take his bad right kidney, take out Diana's good right kidney and throw it in this guy's body. Well, guess what happens to your good kidney in this guy's body? It's going to die too because you haven't fixed anything. And not to mention the stress that all the other organs that are in there, all those other organs have stress now too. They have stress in there too because the nerve system is not working properly. So he comes to our office and imagine this. Imagine going to a chiropractor. Again, some of you guys know what chiropractic is. Some of you guys kind of think you know what chiropractic is, but majority of people that I meet think chiropractic is just neck pain and back pain. So imagine your friend, you're 30 years old, you're about to ready to have a kidney transplant, and your best friend says, hey, come see my chiropractor. And you're like, you are out of your mind. You are completely out of your mind. Why would I go see your chiropractor for kidney problem? Then we start doing adjustments on this guy. Within 3 months, he came off his pain meds and came off his dialysis. In 6 months' time, canceled his kidney transplant. Now, here's what I love about the story. I didn't adjust him for kidney problems. I adjusted him to restore function to his body. And when we restored function to this part of the body, not only did it help the right kidney, it helped the left kidney, it helped the intestines, helped his male organs, helped his prostate, helped his back muscles. All those things that were functioning at a lesser level are now working back again the way they're supposed to. Picture the neck. On the left one, that's a textbook normal. You want to see a curve like a banana, 40 to 45 degrees. That means that the nerve supply is working at 100% or close to there. She's 50 years old on the left-hand side. The girl on the right, lady on the right, she's 50 years old as well. Lady on the right, you can see this. You can see all the stress that's coming through the nerve system in there. And that stress in the nerve system that's going on there, it's being pulled, stretched, and choked. So think of it like a garden hose. The tone is definitely off and has been off for a lot of years. She's taking 6 different medications. And so if you come back here to this nerve chart and you start to look at the top of the spine here, and you look at where those nerves go to, you can start to guess, oh man, she's probably taking some thyroid medication. She was taking 2. She was taking 1 for high blood pressure, 1 for sinus headaches, 1 for depression, 1 for anxiety. So she's taking 6 different medications by the time she's miserable. Life is miserable. She has no energy for anything. She keeps, every time she goes back to the doctor, they want to put on more drugs. So when Pam comes into my office, I'm like, Pam, I go, my job is not to fix your thyroid. My job's not to fix your sinus problems, allergies. My problem's not to fix your high blood pressure. My job is to restore function back to your body. Let's alleviate the pressure off this nerve system. Let's let your body get going in the right direction. And then your body's going to start to be able to go through the healing process. Sure enough, 3 months in, came off all 6 of her drugs and medications. 16 years later, never went back, never had another drug, got her energy back, got her life back. And she's in a phase 3 of degeneration, by the way. She's in a late stage phase 3 degeneration. So people come into my office all the time saying, I'm too old. Man, this lady's spine is as old can be. And she still was able to get function back to her body and health back to her body. Pretty amazing.
that's so inspiring.
What's that?
It's just so inspiring because I feel like a lot of people, you started this presentation talking about your girls and how from the get-go you started a certain way. And, a lot of us have different stories. I figured it out pretty early, but not all ahead of time. And we have a lot of people who, their kids got very sick, and that's how they came to a more holistic approach because they started realizing and asking the questions and thinking like, oh my gosh, maybe it's not great that my, toddler has these wild outbursts every time they eat something that's neon red, or, they're hitting their siblings, or they can't focus in school, or whatever the situation is. And they start asking those questions. But do you have like a word that you could say to them or something that you can say to encourage them? Because these stories to me are very inspirational. But like, what would you say to those parents who feel like they started on the wrong footing? Like maybe things aren't as optimal. Maybe their kid only really does eat chicken nuggets. Like, how do we make some of these transitions? Like, is chiropractic a great place to start? Do they want to make some changes and then come explore the chiropractic? Like, what do you recommend?
I'm always big on nerve system first, because this is why, and this is why it's a great question. I kept asking the question why. Like when I was a kid, I kept asking the question why. Because my friends ate the same stuff I did. My brother ate the same stuff I did, didn't have the problems. But he also didn't have the spinal problems that I had. That was the issue, that nobody clued that in. And so we see this with families. I'm going to show you, this is a great example right here. And so here's my encouraging word. is that God's grace is amazing in our bodies. Our bodies you can screw things up for a long time, but there's a lot of grace. So you start with little things, start with the nerve system always first. And then you start with little things. You don't try to overwhelm kids with changing everything all at once, especially if you start to realize you're on the wrong path. Start
Yeah.
asking the question, why drives doctors crazy? If you're still currently going to doctors, like I said, my girls have never been to a doctor in their life. But I think back to when I was a kid, the thing that drove the doctors craziest, I believe, was when I kept at 17 years old, he's like, you have these asthma allergies, you have these headaches. I'm like, why? And it drove them crazy because they couldn't answer the why. They're like, well, you just have these symptoms. That's what they're taught in school, you know? So it's just kind of crazy. I love this picture right here. This is a great example. This is really the quote that I keep asking, the quote that I keep coming back to, that Dee Dee Palmer talked about. This one. This is it right here. These are two kids, same parents, same school, same food, same church, same everything. They live in the same environment, the same temperature. Again, genetically, they're not twins, but genetically they're pretty similar. Little boy never had a sick day in his life. The little girl, though, was constantly sick with ear infections almost shortly thereafter birth. And what happened is, with the ear infections, medically, they would go to the doctor with these ear infections, and the doctor would do what? Antibiotics. And
Yeah.
antibiotics do what to the immune system? Destroy the immune system and destroy
Yeah.
the gut, which destroys the immune system, which keeps this spiral downhill. So then what ends up happening is that so many rounds of antibiotics don't work. So finally, they put tubes in her ears. And the tubes didn't work the first time, so they did it a second time. She actually started going deaf. And she missed every day of first grade up until the point that she came to my office. Now, as you look at these two x-rays, knowing what we know right now, which one's the sick little girl? How easy is this to see? That minus 13 degrees is the sick little girl. We know
Oh
it.
yeah.
How do we know this? I
Yeah.
mean, we know it. It's so easy
Yeah.
for us to see. And see, when I saw that x-ray, I was devastated for them. When the parents saw that, they lost it. They're like, take this x-ray. We're going to go down and yell at some doctors right now.
Oh.
Right. And I'm like, I'm kind of sick like that. I kind of wanted to do it a little bit, Diana. I wanted to take them down there, but I actually defended the doctors. I said, you know what? It's not your doctor's fault. They're like, what do you mean? I go, she's minus 13 degrees. She's in a phase 2 of degeneration. She's only 6 years old. What do you mean? I'm like, it's not your doctor's fault. In fact, if the doctor didn't give your kid antibiotics, they would lose their license. If they didn't give the antibiotics the second time, they would lose their license. If they didn't do tubes in the ears, they would lose their license. It's not your doctor's fault. It's the protocols, and it's the medical industrial complex that's the problem. That's the problem that comes with this thing. And that's what I said. I said to parents, I said, listen, I get that she's having ear infection. I get that's why you're here, but that's not why I'm going to adjust her. What I see when I see this x-ray like this, minus 13 degrees, I look at that and I'm like, okay, if she's here when she's 6 and you do nothing about this, what's going to happen is this spine's going to keep decaying and deteriorating and degenerating. Just like a cavity in your tooth, every day that it's there, it just keeps getting worse. This spine's going to keep getting worse. And I'm worried about, this is going to be cancer. This is going to be heart disease. This is going to be diabetes. This is going to be thyroid issues. Probably more than likely, this turns into thyroid issues in the next 10 to 15 years if she doesn't do anything about it. Now, can I say that with absolute 100% certainty? No, but I know that's where this is going. I know the end of the story. And I said to the parents, I said, listen, we've got to get her adjusted right. So we started adjusting her. Within 2 weeks, she was off all of her antibiotics. Within 3 weeks, she was completely clear of ear infections, never missed another day of first grade again. And the fascinating thing was, thank God, one of mom's best friends said, hey, I know your kid has ear infections. I know you can't find a way. You need to go see my chiropractor. And she's like, oh, we've been to chiropractors before. And she's like, no. You need to go to a chiropractor that's going to work with the healing power inside the body, not somebody that's going to just work with musculoskeletal issues, obviously, along the way. And so we started functioning. Now, here's what I love. When we started adjusting her, I know I didn't adjust her for ear infections. I know that we're helping her prevent future problems from happening, and she's going to have a happier, healthier life. Now, in our office, once somebody in the family starts, we encourage everybody else in the family to get checked. And the reason why is because the picture on the left there, that's the other brother. He's at 34 degrees. You're supposed to be at 40. So he's already got the beginnings of problems to the spine. Now, symptoms are probably 10 years away, maybe 20 years away if he's lucky. I don't know. But he's already starting on this pathway. How much do you think they would pay to go back in her life and start when she was at this spot? They would have saved $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, work missed, school missed, friends, social, immune system. I mean, it's priceless what you put on this thing. When you
Yeah.
start talking about the nerve system and the spine, it's It's just different. It's fascinating, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. I mean, quality of life alone.
So
Obviously
different.
the financial is a big piece, but the quality of life of that child, is
And it's
you
investment.
cannot.
Here's what I try to tell
Yeah.
people. It's an investment, right? You either invest
Yeah.
now, you either invest the money and time now on a smaller level, or you're going to end up paying, you're going to be at the mercy of what the medical is going to do for you to try to help you with symptoms. You either
Yeah.
invest time and money now, which is going to be a fraction of the cost of paying for it later on down the road. So you've got to take
Sure.
care of these things. So I'm big on always, you asked the question before, I'm big always in starting with the nerve system, because this is
Mhm.
the adaptability factor that has to start there. And of course, we believe big in clean whole food nutrition, stressing
Mhm.
less, getting kids outside, minimizing toxins, detoxing the body, moving the body, spinal alignment. These are all the pieces that we constantly talk about on a regular basis. Fevers are good. Sleep is for healing. Like our kids, when they had fevers, like if you have a kid with fever, know that that body's building an immune system. But we want to make sure that the adaptability in the immune system is working well. So we want to make sure the nerve system is working well. Let the fevers go through its process, because that builds the immune system. They found that kids with febrile infections, the more febrile infections, fevers with infections, the more that they have as a kid, the less likelihood they have as cancer later on in life. Why? Because they developed an immune system. It's part
Yeah.
of it, right? Sleep is for healing. We pray for with our kids when they had fevers and stuff when they were kids. We adjusted them. Thank God we had chiropractors as parents, right? We adjust them, but I go to people's houses all the time and adjust their kids that are in fevers and beds all the time. Why? Because I want to make sure that they stay healthy and stay strong and they get the best chance. I do what other people what I would want done for my kids. And so we adjust kids that have fevers, sickness, but we also say sleep is for healing. You need to shut down the brain for the body to actually go through the process of healing. So we tell our kids, go to sleep. And they hate that because they know that we're just trying to get them out of our hair, but sleep is good. You know, symptoms are good. Don't suppress symptoms. If they're coughing, if they're running nose, if they have these symptoms, don't give them something to suppress symptoms. If you suppress symptoms, then if you stop a cough, now you've prolonged the disease. Let them go through
Mhm.
what they got. I know it's inconvenient. Usually the drugs are for the parents. It's not for the kids. It's because it's more
Sure.
convenient for the parents to be able to do those things, but again, it's an investment. Do you want to have a little bit of comfort now, or do you want to pay for it massively later on down the road? Like what is it? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
So couple things to finish on how to connect with me. We are doing a dinner with the doc at the office. So if you guys have somebody, a friend or family member, next Monday, you guys can get a hold of me. I'm gonna give you my email on the next one. Next Monday night at 6 p.m. During COVID, we used to go out to restaurants all the time. And I used to teach like once every 6 weeks. We used to teach this class about like kind of what I just took you guys through. But if you guys have people that need this desperately, this is a great way to do it. Typically, they get to the end of this dinner with the doc. I offer them exam and a consultation, x-rays, and check up in our office for $40, where it's usually a couple $100. So if you know somebody that's like, they just don't know that they need this, or they need more information on it, this is a great opportunity for you to come to hear this information. So just email me, or you can text us, call us, whatever it is. Here's my info. Our IG, let's see, IG, and I believe our TikTok is Family Healing Chiropractic. Family Healing Chiropractic, familyhealingcharlotte.com is our website. And then, of course, that's my email. So if you guys have questions for me, and you think of anything else, Diana, that you want me to cover, or questions you have for me as we.
Um, no, I think that was very thorough. And I know that personally, I'm inspired. I think you did a really great job of addressing the various people. So we have people who, like we talked about, have been holistic since day one. God bless, that's amazing. And then we have a lot of people who have found this community later. And I think that the message that I'm hearing is that regardless of where you are in that journey and where you're entering, now is the time, right? And get that nervous system functioning, because it's going to set so many things. You're going to realize all of these side benefits, right? As opposed to side effects. What a
Love
difference
it.
that can be. And so I think it's powerful, and I love seeing your girls. They're so lively and energetic and wonderful. And I think you guys have done an amazing job. So that's
That's all their
awesome.
mom. That's all their mom.
She's pretty awesome too.
What's funny is that as you were saying that, something that just kind of triggered with me is like, it's a in our day and age, our world right now, with all the information that we have, it's so fascinating to me um, that we still live in a world where we're just getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I hate that for our kids. And I hate that for our world. That's part of the issues that we're dealing with socially, culturally.
Mhm.
I think it's a big piece of these things, because I mean, how can you help people that have mental health issues? I mean, mental health issues are rampant, even if they're diagnosed or undiagnosed. But we're seeing massive amounts of this because people's guts, their nerve system, their food that they're putting in their body, they're doing nothing to keep them on the pathway of having proper function. So if you're, I mean, you guys know how we all are, and we've all been there. When I feel like crap, I don't want to do anything. When I feel like
Mhm.
crap, I'm short with people. I'm short with my kids. When I feel
Yeah.
like crap, I don't want to go serve my patients sometimes, you know? So what I try to do is I try to make sure that and this is, somebody told me this a long time ago. If it's about you, if you're taking care of your health for you, then you may or may not take care of your health. But if you know that you have to take care of your health because number one, your spouse needs help on this planet, right? Or that you're here
Yeah.
for your kids and you need to be an example for them. Or you start to understand that, well, God put me down here to share a message, to do something big, to do think crunchy, to do whatever it is. Like if you
Yeah.
fully believe that you have a purpose down here, your why is a lot bigger than just saying, "Oh, I just want to do this because I want to feel good." Or
Yeah.
I kind of want to be healthier. No, you gotta have a bigger why behind it. Because
Yes.
it's if the why is small, then it makes it easy to just go to Chick-fil-A because it's God's chicken, right? So
Yes. Yeah, it's funny. I was literally just having this conversation with someone. I was saying, it was Dr. Benton. I was having this conversation with Dr. Benton yesterday, actually. And I said, I'm just like a homeschool mom right now, and I've got my girls and we're having a good time. And I'm an introvert. Like I could be so content just sitting back and kicking it and doing my thing with the girls and running around and living our life. But I really feel like, I mean, the whole purpose of all of this that we're doing is I want to normalize holistic health. I want to give opportunity to all the small businesses. I want to connect them. I want to bring them to the community. I want my children who are 10 and 13 to have a world that is beyond Amazon and Novant, right? Like I want small businesses who care about them, who see them, who are in community with them, to be around and to have opportunity to heal in ways that you and I know are very powerful, right? And I believe that there's a place for all of it, right? Like chiropractic is so important. And I'm one of these people growing up, it was like, doctors who goes to chiropractors, you know? And now I think like, oh my goch, who doesn't go to a chiropractor? Like,
right.
there's what you do is so important. And I think it's such a critical piece. And so many people think of it as what you were saying, like a back issue. Like, oh, your back hurts, you should go to a chiropractor. And it's so far beyond that now. And I think it's really changing, and I don't think it's just what I'm learning. I think that the community in general is realizing like ear infections and behavioral stuff and digestive problems and headaches and all of these things that we were never trained to think, right? Like it was always just if your back hurts, go to a chiropractor. If you're in a car accident, that's who should go to a chiropractor. And it's just this whole new world where, the same way that you want to put good stuff in your body, you need somebody who's like, you're like the mechanic of the body, right? Like you're just like tuning the instrument and making sure that it's doing its thing. And because it is an amazing instrument, right? And we're all just doing the best we can and chugging along. But, having people like you in our community who can provide that service and make sure that everybody is able to go out and live their best life, it just improves everything, right? Like it gets people kind of glowing and shining their light and feeling better and wanting to support each other. And I think that is amazing. And I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you for all you do. And you have so much education. That's the other thing. I know you dropped it all here, but you guys really do a great job with your social media, with your events, with your education. So for people who are looking to learn more, definitely check them out. Go follow their socials. They do a tremendous job. And I love that you guys do all these community events and you will also go to workplaces, right? And do lunch and learns and that sort of thing.
Yeah, Dr. Brandon's at a yeah, he's at a school right now for a teacher appreciation day.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, and then we were at Synchrony Financial Uptown, Synchrony Financial and Ballantyne last week. We did two
Cool.
nursing homes last week. So just try to go out to these people that are taking care of our community. Like they've got to start to learn how to take care of themselves. Like
Yeah.
we don't have the money or we don't have the money or the advertising that big pharma has in the medical industrial complexes. They just want us to be lazy and just sit back and wait for the symptoms to come and then medicate the heck out of it. That's what they want. And then they've got
Yeah.
us. You're stuck in that
Yeah.
medical industrial complex. They've got you as a customer for the rest of your life. But if you can
Right.
get out of it and you can stay out of it early, that's the key.
Yeah. Yep. I think it was a powerful message. I appreciate you. Great
Thanks for
job.
all you do. We appreciate all you
Yeah.
do. It's keeping us all connected. We need a mom in the group that keeps us all together like you. You're like the mom that says, okay, let's make sure we stay together. I know we all have our different laser beam focuses out here and everything like that, and we're all trying to influence this, but we are way better together for sure. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, Dr. Mark. I'm sure we'll do it again soon. There's
Yes.
so much more to learn, so we'll definitely
Anytime.
do it again. And I appreciate you all being here. Have a great day.
Thanks, girl. Have a good one.
Bye.